Crowhill here. Today we review a red ale and give reasons why you should go to church even if you don't believe anything. Hey, Bigweed!
Okay, well, here we are.
Good to see ya.
Yes. How about some beer and conversation?
I think that's a great idea. What are we drinking?
This is Smithwick's
Smithwick's.
Red Ale, product of Ireland.
Yep.
It's
Classic St. Patty's Day sort of a
Patty's
beer.
Day.
Yep.
Here we are in March, and it's 4.5%.
Yep.
And it looks like a pint.
And it's a stupid looking can because it's not quite a pint,
No, what
but
is
it's
it?
not 12 ounce, 14.9. Why do we
where do
get
you
these
get that?
stupid numbers? But
All right.
okay. But Smithwick's is a classic beer to drink if you're at an Irish pub, and it's pretty good.
Oh, hold on. It says, did you know this here? It says, so, you have to be 21 to drink.
Right.
Unless you're in the U.S. Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Why do you put that on your can?
I don't know why you put that on
From
your can.
Ireland.
Okay, so,
What's on your mind?
well, I was wondering, I've been spending too much time on social media lately, and I need to stop doing that. But I see people making these moral pronouncements of one sort or another.
Okay.
And I wonder, where in the world are they getting this from? Like, where are people getting their moral instruction? How are they forming their moral opinions?
So you're saying they don't sound like their church proclamations?
No, these people just have some. They're certain. They have this moral certainty about something, whatever it is. And I'm like, where did you get that from? The news? Did you get that from Oprah? Like, where did it come from?
Right.
Yeah. So that's what's on my mind, and I think maybe there are some better ways for people to get their moral instruction. Yeah. All right. So Smithwick's Red Ale is a classic. I enjoy it, and it's if you're at an Irish pub, you either drink a Guinness or a Smithwick's.
Yeah. Or
Irish whiskey.
a Newcastle.
Or a Newcastle.
I like
Sure.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good brown. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me see. Right, so yeah, it's about what reds aren't really red, but they're like that.
Yeah, a slightly red ale. Mm-hmm. Very pleasant beer to drink. So, the topic today is why you should go to church, even if you don't believe in God. And I'm making the argument that you should go to church,
Okay.
even if you don't believe. And I don't know if you know this, but back in the reign of Queen Elizabeth in England, everybody was required by law to go to church.
Well,
Like, if you were a Jew, you still had to go to church because that was the law. And that sounds oppressive and horrible, and I'm not advocating anything like that. But I think there is some benefit to a culture and a society for people to have some kind of a common bond.
I'm sure that's what they had in mind. And,
Yeah.
and, it wasn't as Queen Elizabeth was worried about your soul.
Right.
It was right. It was.
She's trying to maintain the nation.
Right. It wasn't a theological matter.
Right.
As much as it was. This is how you hold a nation together.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
I mean, there's that point. So how about this? I think going to church might help you get over yourself. Like in a time where everybody gets certificates and ribbons and trophies just for showing up, church might kind of cure that warped self-image where you're reminding that the world isn't really just about you.
I would say that the worst of the defining features of the, I don't mean modern sounds like the last 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean the last 5 years.
Okay.
Is narcissism.
Yeah.
I think the my truth and
Right.
how I identify and my pronouns
Yeah, I know.
we are
Everything
just
is me, 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 me.
100%.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that church going might help with that.
I think so, because it starts to teach people that everything isn't just about you. Now, I mentioned this before, but where else, other than church, where do people get moral instruction? Like, where do you get any kind of moral instruction? You certainly don't get it from TV.
Right.
Like, but that's the problem, is people are getting their concepts of morality from watching sitcoms and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So is anybody taking the time to try to think through a moral issue as a moral issue, as opposed to just kind of breathing it in along with this other tripe?
Yeah, right. And do it if it feels good.
Right.
Maybe we
Yeah.
do less of that.
Maybe some less of that. Yeah. And then another thing is you get exposed to larger concerns. Churches are places where you hear about issues and challenges that you don't hear about otherwise.
Yeah, I think we are, as we become more and more isolated, we also have devices that tailor the information that we get to something that we already want to hear. I mean, it's one of the problems in universities in the last, since the smartphone, is that kids come in, reporting their teacher for teaching them things that they don't already believe. Well, how about hearing something maybe that you don't already believe?
Yeah. How about hearing something that challenges you? Yeah. Fortunately, church is still a place where you have to sit quietly and listen to somebody talk, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Yeah. Now, this is sort of a weird one, but where else do you get to sing?
It's pretty good.
I mean, singing used to be an important part of life. And, I was just watching Darby O'Gill and the Little People on St. Patrick's Day. And Darby is there with King Brian, and they're talking about having some time together. And he says, how about a song?
Right.
And they sing a song. When do we sing songs? Ever?
Yeah, I mean, right. Christmas carols, that's about it, right?
That's about it, yeah. Or singing in church. Now, this one is a little different. The concept that prayer is good for you. Now, I'm going to say that prayer is good for you, whether you believe that you're praying to somebody or not. And here's why I'm going to say that. Because what you're doing in prayer is you're taking the concerns and the details of your life, and you're putting those things in the context of a higher moral order, of a structure, right? You're saying, okay, look, I understand that there's more going on than just what I want or what this person wants. Prayer puts all of the details of your life in the context of a greater moral order.
Right. As long as the prayer isn't asking God to do something for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. But that's one of the things that you need to learn in prayer is that no, it's not about me. I'm not saying may I have this, yeah. God is not like a gumball machine.
But unless it's when it is about you, it's God help me to be a better person kind of a thing, right? And then maybe just spending the time recognizing that there are things about you that you could fix.
Yes.
Even if, you don't actually believe that God is going to intervene on your behalf. Just spending that time of recognizing that. Or the other thing, let's just say you're praying about poor old Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
Now, even if you don't think that God's going to come down and help him, the time that you have spent thinking about him might incline you to go over there with a casserole.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. It's going to make you more favorably disposed towards him. Yeah. But I think the concept is, even if you don't believe in God, the very concept of prayer is to say, let me put my requests and my desires and where I think things should go in a broader moral context. And you don't have to believe in God to do that. Right. You can just kind of think, I'm trying to think more than just my own personal desires.
All right, so let me practice here. Would I be saying, God, I really don't think you're out there, but I know, right? You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I mean, do you think that would be as helpful as genuinely believing and completing the rest of that? The rest of my prayer would have just started with, I don't think you're out there, but there's probably some things I can do better about myself, and that would have the same value to me personally as believing that there is, that I'm connected to the rest of the universe or whatever.
Yeah. So I suspect, and I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, I can't prove this, but I would suspect that saying something like, I don't know if you really exist or not, but let's just assume for a minute that you do.
Yeah, that would be the right approach. Yeah.
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 And then trying to, the idea would be saying, I'm going to try to put the details and concerns and things about my life in the context of a moral order that transcends all the silliness and nonsense. Mm-hmm. And there has to be something good and helpful about that. Now, the other thing about benefit of going to churches are usually caring communities. Like, no one in church is perfect, but generally speaking, these are people who care for one another. If you're sick, they're going to bring you a casserole, that kind of thing. So it's good to be around people like that.
Meet people outside, your immediate circle.
Right.
Just people who are different than you. Right. Maybe you're just like, I don't really have any friends any new friends. Like I've hung on the same people for the last 25 years.
Right.
Might do me some good to rub shoulders
with different people, and in an environment where you're expected to be polite and you're expected to be nice and loving and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a part of your community, right? There's more to being local than eating locally grown tomatoes. In church, you become part of the community that you actually live in.
So you're right. You're recommending, even if the building and the service is kind of nicer 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
You should probably tend towards your
something
community.
Local. Yeah, probably, just because of the community aspect of it. Generally speaking, churches tend to be involved in charitable activities, so you have the opportunity to be involved in something to help other people.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's usually some sort of an opportunity like that. And also, I think, let's just be practical about this. You need at least 1 hour a week where your face is not buried in your phone.
Or have a screen or a radio.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Church gives you the opportunity to reflect on something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. Right. Back to the narcissism. Yeah. Good.
It helps you to practice patience and discipline. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard awful sermons that I've had to sit through, or sing songs that I don't like.
Speaking of discipline, actually getting up on a Sunday before you really feel like it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Also, when else do you have an opportunity to dress decently?
Yeah.
In modern society.
Of course, I'm sure that depends on the church.
Yes,
there's probably some, Crocs and pajamas churches out there.
I'm totally, wear a tie. I mean, for heaven's sakes. Here's an interesting one. It reminds you that people have been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something like sort of the democracy of the dead, that you're uniting yourself with a broader stretch of humanity in a certain way.
Yeah.
There's got to be some benefit to that. I don't know. And then here's the last one I've got, which is sort of the weekly cycle. The idea of ritual, the idea of marking time. There are you have birthdays and you have New Year and that sort of thing. Just this idea of kind of a weekly repetition of, okay, today's the day that I'm going to actually be a little bit serious and thinking about things from a serious perspective. There's some benefit in having that as a regular part of your life.
Yeah. Now, we did a show on cathedrals versus storefront churches.
Yeah, yes.
So I would say skip the storefront in this term, exposing yourself to beauty. Mm-hmm. That I don't think
that's a good one.
I work in an industrial park,
right?
And my house is fine, but it's not beautiful. And I mean, as opposed, like sometimes I'll go to, you go to a courthouse or an office building or
Yeah, and
something
you
like
think,
that,
wow,
and you go,
that's-
wow. Like
Yeah.
you might not be, and I don't work in a courthouse or an office,
Yeah.
or a spectacular office building where you're impressed with the architecture and such. This might be your chance just to take in some beauty. When we went to St. Matthew's
Yeah.
in D.C., I was just...
It's pretty amazing.
Right. I mean, here, I'm not a churchgoer. Maybe I will be after the show. But I was really moved just by the beauty and the architecture of it. So
I think that's a great point. You go into a church and you see images, you see icons, you see stained glass,
Color
you see
and light
statuary,
and-
you see, high ceilings. There's something about just the concept of a high ceiling
yeah.
that actually humbles you in a certain way. It makes you feel small, and
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of it, right? Yes, and and the feeling of this is why, not going to what used to be your local highs, which is now a church. You walk into one of those, and you're like, this is the kind of place God would live. Right?
Yes, exactly.
That's that a cathedral gives you with it.
Yes, so supposedly the concept of the cathedral or the church was almost like the universe in miniature. So that when you're entering into the church, you're kind of entering into you're seeing the whole world from within the perspective of that sanctuary. And I'm not sure how much I buy into that, but it's an interesting way to reorient your mind. Actually, here's an interesting thought. The problem where you're upstairs and you say, I need to go get something, and you walk downstairs, and by the time you get downstairs, you're like, what was I going to get? You remember that?
Oh, no, that's never happened.
Yeah. Well, supposedly one of the reasons for that is going through a door. That when you go through a door, your mind resets. And when I first heard that, I thought, that guy sounds kind of stupid. But I thought about it a little more. It actually makes some good sense because you're leaving one space.
Right, because rooms have functions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're leaving one space and you're going into another space, and your mind resets for the function of that new space. Well, when you go into a sacred space, your mind is resetting into that reality, right? So there's some benefit in that, just in kind of resetting your mind. And so I think there's a lot of reasons. There's so many reasons to say, never mind. Why do I care? I don't believe what they say. I don't. It's a waste of my time. I don't like these people. I can understand the reasons why people would not want to go to church, but there are a lot of benefits. The idea of hearing the commandments, saying prayers, orienting your life around something that has meaning beyond yourself.
Very good. Now, what if you're new to the game and yes, you want some, you want some beauty, you want some music. You don't want a rainbow flag. You're living in the Baltimore-Washington corridor.
Right.
And, we've already talked about church wokeness.
Yeah.
And you're coming... So, denomination-wise, where would a person start if you're not ready to... if you're like, the smells and the bells of the Catholic Church is really just
a little too much.
For me at this stage.
Right. Well, I think the best place to start would be a Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod.
Oh boy.
But there's basically two branches. There's the Evangelical Lutheran Church, where you might see the pride flag, or the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and it's very like Catholic light. It has sort of traditional kind of liturgy. It has, usually there's beautiful music. Usually it's it's a better architecture.
Well, I grew up Episcopalian,
Right.
which is really Catholic light.
Yes.
I mean, we say I always was like, believe in the Holy Catholic Church. I'm like, what are we doing?
Aren't we here?
Is that what
I thought
I'm
we were in the
doing?
Episcopal Church.
Yeah. So we would say that, and there's no, but there's communion and there's all of that. But especially watching the National Cathedral debacle with the Trump lady, I'm like, that's not probably not my people, but maybe maybe that's the extreme end of that. I mean, how's the Episcopals doing
I
these days?
I would love to recommend the Episcopal Church because for one thing, I'm somewhat of an Anglophile, and for another thing, I really appreciate the English liturgy, the Anglican liturgy. I like it a lot, and there's a lot of things about the Episcopal Church that I like the Book of Common Prayer. There's a lot of things about the Anglican Church that are great. The problem is that it's just plain fallen off a cliff in the last 30 years.
Right.
And nowadays it's so, unless you can find a somewhat conservative Episcopal Church, you're going to get such a bunch of Barney and Friends, LGBTQ, rainbow BS in most Episcopal churches. Wow. That now, if you're lucky, you can find one that's decent, and so that's why, that's why I said the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Well, what about I got some Presbyterians down the street? Where are they on the woke scale?
Oh, they're all over the map.
Okay,
now,
like the Methodists, right? They can be
exactly
the worst.
You can have extraordinarily hard-headed fundamentalist Methodists or Presbyterians, and you can have extraordinarily woke.
So you
off
just
the
can't
deep
know
end.
by the sign. Well, you could tell by the flag out front. But if the flag's not there, then at least you got a chance.
And if it says Reverend Janet, then you have some indication
and her wife.
there, right?
All right. Well,
I mean, that's the other part of this. I mean, I want to say, wouldn't it be nice if people could go to church and get moral instruction and sing and pray and put their lives in some sort of meaningful context, be involved with their community, be involved in charitable activities, all those kind of things. And then I look out in the real world and realize 78% of these churches aren't worth a damn.
Right.
So that's the bad side of what I'm trying to say. It's
all right, so you're saying go to church, but be careful.
Yes.
You might come out worse.
You might. Who knows what you're gonna catch?
All
right. So anyway,
well, you get some solid points, and
it's something to think
let
about.
you know.
People should just try to think. Isn't there a purpose don't you want to have a sense of meaning? Don't you want your life to be like guided in a moral way? And where are you getting that in your life right now?
Right. Yeah. Church might be the way, even if you haven't been in a while.
Exactly. Or even if you don't believe anything, it might still be supposedly Richard Dawkins kind of likes church a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I when Marx was exiled to England, he's like, "What's the only place you can hear good Bach?"
Not anymore. I mean, that's the problem. Nowadays, you don't even get Bach.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.